you, as always. We are going to hear from Biden, could be at any time soon. A serious crisis going on. The White House is calling it an invasion. Joe Biden is under an awful lot of pressure to impose sanctions on Russia from Congress. Do you think that that is something he might announce tonight?
He might, but he needs to come out strong. First of all, he should demand out of our European allies that they be the front people here. This is their problem, front and center. They need to unite. They need to figure out what they want to do. The U.S. should stand by them, but we should not be leading the charge here. If the Europeans can't get their act together and figure out how to handle a problem in their backyard, President Biden should not tolerate that. I hope his speech is strong. As far as sanctions, look, the Russians are smart. They understood the sanctions would be coming. The sanctions against the oligarchs, fine, that's nice, but they're playing chess, we're playing checkers.
Now, this would be the biggest war in Europe since the Second World War. This is not nothing. Putin has nearly 200,000 troops positioned at the border with Ukraine. Some people are saying that the US has been too weak on Vladimir Putin for far too long, going right back to when President Obama was in the White House and when Putin moved into Syria. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, we are very weak. We look very weak. What did we think he was doing when he amassed all these troops? Did we think he was going to spend all that time and money amassing the troops and not do something? We were weak then. We were weak when they went into Crimea. We didn't stand by our ally in Ukraine. And again, it shouldn't be our job first. It should be the Europeans' job. I commend Germany for halting the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. But where were they a couple of weeks ago? They sent helmets to Ukraine. They really need to step up to the plate.
The Europeans, you think, which is something, of course, President Trump talked about a lot, that the Europeans need to step up and start taking responsibility for their own security.
100%. One of the first things President Trump said when he was a candidate was, the Europeans are not paying their share of NATO. And I listened to that and I thought, how's that possible? How did we let them get away with that? Why is America always the one to come in and solve the problems when the people who are directly affected don't solve it for themselves?
We've just been talking about the knock-on effect in the region because Qatar right now, who President Biden recently made a major non-NATO ally, Qatar is right now hosting the president of Iran and others. They're talking about gas prices, which are very much the story of the day at the moment. Do you think that this is undermining America's position on the world stage, particularly in the negotiations with Iran?
No, I don't think so. First of all, Qatar is in a dangerous place, just like Israel's in a dangerous place. They need to do what they need to do to protect their citizens, to protect their assets. I think Qatar is a far more reliable ally than Russia. So I think Qatar should step up to the plate as well. They're a good friend of America, a strong ally of America. I don't think they're going to try to undermine America. I think they have a good relationship with President Biden. So I think it's a good role for them to have.
One thing President Biden did do is he asked the Qataris if they could divert some of their gas supplies from Asia to Europe. It appears that the move to kind of knock out a major supplier of natural gas is having a knock-on effect in negotiations in this part of the world.
I haven't read about it. It sounds like a clever idea. I hope we can rely on Qatar to do it. The Europeans are going to be in for a terrible, terrible surprise when they see their prices for energy. And if Qatar could help reduce that, reduce a little bit of the pain because of what's going on, that's good for Qatar. That's good for Europe. I don't know the effect on the U.S.
All right. Well, while we're waiting for President Biden, let's talk about the other major foreign policy issue for the Americans right now. That is, of course, reviving the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. When you look at the draft deal on the table, the one that the Israeli Prime Minister has called weaker and shorter than the 2015 deal, are you worried?
Very worried. I'm very worried for Israel. I'm worried for our friends and allies in the Gulf, all of the GCC, Jordan, Egypt. It's a JPNA, Joint Plan No Action, or Joint Plan Negative Action. It took a terrible deal and it made it worse. It's shorter, less reliable. I mean, we're really just pretending that this issue is going away. It's not going away.
I actually spoke to the former Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, on the show yesterday, and I put it to him that the maximum pressure campaign was pursued by himself and also by, of course, President Trump just didn't work because here we are with a much stronger Iran. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I caught the interview. I thought you did a great job. I thought he did a great job, and actually I agree with him. I don't think people gave it a chance. I think they cut it off. They undid all the power that it could have been. And by the way, you can't trust the Iranians, and I think Israel proved that. I think he said that himself, right? So it was an agreement. It was too short. It had sunset clauses. They were enriching anyway. They got crazy amounts of money to foment terrorism around the world, including now you're seeing rockets flying at Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, much less Israel, which has always suffered from it. So I think it was the right deal. It didn't get enough time. And I think doing an appeasement deal, which is what the JCPOA was, and a double, triple appeasement deal, which is what I'm reading in the press that this new deal might be. It's a terrible situation.
And talking about the rockets flying at Abu Dhabi and all the rest of it, I mean, just yesterday, the Israeli Foreign Minister, Yair Lapid, he warned that the Iranians were asking for a kind of bonus from the Americans and that they wanted them to delist the Iranian Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organization. That would be quite extraordinary, wouldn't it? I mean, this is the group that funds the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, among others. Do you really think the Biden administration would go that far?
I'd like to say no. I'd like to say I can't believe it. But look what they did to the Houthis, right? The Houthis are terrorists. They're bloodthirsty terrorists. There was some, you could give humanitarian aid to Yemen if you delisted. You can figure out a way to give Yemeni people humanitarian aid without delisting the Houthis. If there's any truth to the story, I can't even believe it's a topic of conversation to delist the RGC.
What would your advice be then to the current administration when it comes to Middle East policy?
Well, when it comes to Iran, be in the room or don't be negotiating.
Right, because they're not in the room physically, are they?
If you want to talk about looking weak, right, they're in the room next door, 10 hotels away, and they're letting our European friends and allies do it. But as friends and allies, they still don't necessarily believe what we believe. When Vice President Pence hosted a conference in Warsaw, the Europeans went around us to try to make money off Iran. It can't be that way. We have to be in the room, and the GCC and Israel should be in the room as well.
And, I mean, Israel is looking increasingly isolated in its opposition to the regime and in its opposition to the deal. As I just mentioned, President Raisi is in Qatar right now. The Emiratis have trade and diplomatic ties with Iran. Even the Saudis are talking about renewing that round of talks that they've been having in Iraq. Is it time to accept this regime isn't going anywhere?
I think with weak leadership, it's not going anywhere. And I can't blame the Saudis or the Qataris or the Emiratis. I think they have to do what they need to do to protect their own interests. It's a normal, realistic way to approach things. But I do think Israel is the only one that's standing up to this.
Relations...
Sorry, publicly.
Yes, sure. Relations between Israel and its new allies in the region are flourishing. You've had all these trade and defence deals, the most recently with Morocco. There's been... Prime Minister Bennett was in Bahrain not so long ago. It's going really well, but are you worried that the Abraham Accords have kind of lost momentum, that no one else is really lining up to sign them right now?
No, I'm not worried. I think those that have signed it is great. I think that they're really putting in a tremendous amount of effort. We see the warmth. We see the results. I'm patient. I think these things are going to take a lot of time, but I do think if we aren't strong with Iran, things could recede.
Okay, well, Jason Greeblatt, great to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed.